Please note that this example of graphing a vertex form is not actually in your homework. This is one that I made up so that you could do one in your homework on your own. But looking at this equation, I know that it's in vertex form because it's in the form f of x equals a parentheses x minus h quantity squared plus k, where hk is my vertex. So if I want to identify the vertex right away, I go to the 1 and I take the opposite of it, which is positive 1. And the 8 at the end is the y value in the vertex. And I'm going to make a note of the negative 2 that's out in front. That's my multiplier. It tells me that the graph is reflected over the x-axis. And it also tells me there's a multiplier of 2. So when I come down here to graph, I'm going to plot 1, 8. And for me, it's quickest to graph when I use the pattern that we discussed in class. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9. But we said we need to remember the reflection that's in the graph and also the multiplier of 2. So instead of going up 1, 4, and 9, we're going to go down 1, 4, and 9 for the reflection. And I'm also going to double each of these. So when I go to the vertex, I'm going to go out 1 on both sides and down 2 spaces. In order to plot the next point, I go back to the vertex, I go out 2 spaces and down 8. Out 2 spaces, down 8. And I can also go out 3 spaces, again starting at the vertex, down 18. That point does not always fit on the graph, but in this case it does, and I can connect my graph. As best as possible. In order to identify some of the important pieces of information, I have the vertex. We already identified it right here. I know the y-intercept because I can see it on the graph. It's the point where the graph crosses the y-axis at 0, 6. But we've also discussed how you cannot always see this point on the graph. If I go back to the original equation and I substitute 0 in for x, I can evaluate (0 minus 1 is -1. When I square that, I get +1. I multiply by -2, and I add 8, and I end up with the same number, 0, 6. I can find the axis of symmetry. It's the vertical line that runs through the vertex. So the equation is going to be x equals, and since it goes through the vertex, it's the x-coordinate in the vertex. I know that my graph has a maximum because the highest the graph goes is the vertex. I know the maximum value is at 8. And I can also see the solutions on the graph where the graph crosses the x-axis. So my x-intercepts are at -1, 0, and 3, 0. If I were to solve this equation and set it equal to 0, I should get solutions of -1 and 3. Let's go prove that. If I set it equal to 0 and solve, I would subtract the 8 to move it over to the other side. I would divide by -2. I would take the square root of both sides. Don't forget to put plus or minus on your answer. And I would add 1 to both sides. So 2 plus 1 will give me 3, and -2 plus 1 gives me -1 for my solutions. I would not do all of this work if I could see on my graph all of these important pieces of information, but because you cannot always see them, I also showed you how you are able to find them. Nope.